Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the review realm once again. I think this is album review number 10 for 2026. So we're just keep on keeping on here with the review realm. If you like what you see from us, please hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the show. Really helps us out with all these album reviews that we are just pumping out for you. We have a big one today. A bit of a switch up from what we've been doing so far in February. And as always, joining me for the review realm, the SLB himself, Sam.
Hey guys, I'm looking forward to this one. This is one actually, without getting too much into it. I've actually never listened to an album from this band, and it's going to shock a lot of people who do listen to metal. So,
No, actually, I am right there with you. So, like, if it does come as a shock, you have two people here who have not heard a entire album from this band, even though this band has been around for a long time. And of course, what we're talking about, and we'll just dive into it, is this is album number 11 for this band. Their first album in about 5 years. Of course, we're talking about Converge and their new album, "Love Is Not Enough."
yeah, no, especially growing up in the New England area, this is a band that I feel, I don't know how I missed this one back in high school. And then obviously we have friends who are, big into hardcore punk. Uh, it's not a genre I usually dive into myself. So I was really curious about this.
No, same here because Converge is like it's always a band like we've heard of, being kind of like really local to us. And I said, "Oh yeah, I always I like there was no like I've always like respected what they've done. I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, Converge, yeah, they're cool. Now to finally sit down with them and listen to an album of theirs, it's really nice to see like what they're really all about. And I feel like this is probably just from what I've heard from them in the past, this very much feels like what they normally sound like. Um, just diving right in with the singles, I feel like "Love Is Not" the title track, wastes no time, and I love how the album has a punk feel to it.
Yes, very punky, hardcore. Um, I know this band was formed in 1990, but one of the things that caught me, there were a couple of songs on here where the vocalist and the way the songs were structured, I was getting like an early Dillinger Escape Plan feel.
Yeah, I felt that way at points too, like, maybe not with maybe a little bit with, like there's some pretty short songs on this album here. There's some that are,
Mhm.
there's one that's Distract and Divide was just a minute and a half. The first half of the album has some really short sounds, but yeah, I felt like I kind of agree with you. I felt like it had a Dillinger Escape Plan vibe with how it switched it up sometimes. It felt like even though, like, there's some punk stuff to this album, like, punk elements to this album, it felt like there was a variety to it, even though it was short too. This album's only about a half hour long.
Yeah. And actually, if we want to talk about it, so like Love Is Not Enough had that like, punk hardcore feel. Like, all right, cool, I can dig with this. And then the second track, which is actually the last song on the album, the second single, We Were Never the Same, had more of a doomy sludge feel to it.
Yes, I wrote that. It's funny you say that. I wrote exactly. I love me a sludgy bass intro. I wrote
Mhm.
I wrote for that one. Yeah, I thought there was a lot of cool things on this album. I really enjoyed when it was fast. And then there were points where I felt like they switched it up a bit. Like To Feel Something. That one to me felt very tribal at points,
Mhm.
almost like kind of like Sepultura a little
Yep.
bit, I thought. And I said, "Wow," I said, this album feels each song feels a little bit different."
A little bit different, but also at the same time, when they would switch it up, it's like, oh, this is still the same band and the same album, and it flows. So, like, just to jump back towards the beginning of the album, um, with Distract and Divide and to Feel Something, to me, that felt like Dillinger taking out the progressive end and just being like, this is like the
Mm.
hardcore end of Dillinger. Um, and then a song or two later, we're on to Amon Amok. And again, that's like a sludgy. I was like, is this doomy? This is a quite the switch. So it kept me interested because sometimes with hardcore, I don't know if you feel this way, John. Sometimes with hardcore punk bands, you do get these short albums where it's just really fast, upbeat, and you're like, all right, where does this begin? Where does this end? And I didn't get that with this album.
No, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like, and like you mentioned, Amon Amok. I was wondering what the title meant for that. But with that one, it felt structured a lot differently than the other songs with that. And one that really stood out to me also, before I get to my favorite on the album, is Beyond Repair. And I think that was just, it was just kind of an interlude track, which I know you're not a huge fan of, Sam, but I said, wow, I said,
Mhm.
this is really creepy sounding, and I loved it. Like the kind of the halfway point through the album, and it was kind of a track that like separated both halves of the album.
Yeah. So this was. Remind me, this is a straight up instrumental on this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I'm recalling correctly, you're right. This was almost like uh, it is like 2.5 minutes long, so it's not like a 30-second clip.
Mhm.
So it was a good segue from the hardcore punk first half into this sludgy, at times ambient half of the album.
Yeah, it's just it was I loved it. It's just how dark it was and how daunting and everyone as it was. I said, this is actually really cool. And you know, like other songs too, like Gilded Cades, you know, had that weird bass
Mm.
intro and like a little bit of like I say clean singing like loosely, but like it's like kind of. And then my absolute favorite on the album, I really liked how upbeat it was, and it feel like, you know, I think Converge is really labeled it also as a metalcore band too. Maybe probably because from the area that they come from too. But it felt very much like metalcore to me. My personal favorite, "Make Me Forget You," towards the end of the
Mhm.
album. I really
Yeah.
liked that one.
Um, One of the things I think this album does that I don't think you and I have really confirmed, like in unison, because there's albums I've liked start to finish, and there's albums that you've liked kind of start to finish. This might be the first one we both agree on where I think 30 minutes is perfect, and I don't feel like this album dragged towards the end.
No, I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like this was something that was really welcome now. It's something shorter, something really fast. Like I said, it's I enjoyed the variety it had to offer in the little time that I think not a lot of albums are these days.
Yeah, and again, I'm a big into the prog stuff, and I do like myself a good hour long, concept album. But every so often, a good short 30-minute album, is nice, a good breather. It's like reading. When I read a lot of series, but every so often I need a standalone book because I need to just palate cleanse, and I think this was great for that.
Yeah, I think this was an excellent way to switch it up. I'm very happy that that they put out this album. I think they must have planned it. Love is not enough the day before Valentine's Day. I said that must have been intentional.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm curious as somebody who's never listened to them, what normal fans think, because you and I could listen to this album and be like, "This is great, this is incredible," and then you could go online and be like, "Oh, this is like the worst album that they've ever put out." Like, "Oh, all right, cool." I don't know, like, so I guess my question is, what does the Converge fans think, and what albums would you suggest for new Converge listeners?
Yeah, definitely. So please, if you're listening, please sound off in the comments below what you recommend from Converge. Did you enjoy the new album? Love is not enough. I think both Sam and myself think it's pretty solid overall. And I think yeah, that pretty much wraps up. Sam, I think unless you had anything else you wanted to say before we round off.
Nope, definitely check this album out.
Yeah, no,
That's pretty much it.
absolutely. Love is not enough. 11th album from Converge. Please check it out, and please subscribe to the Review Realm if you want more album reviews like this. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We'll see you next time, and as always, do not forget to join the Bedlam.